Alright, this is from our core math book. This is chapter 1, section 5, solving equations with rational numbers. Today's lesson is actually going to be more review. So this is just a quick diagram of what an equation would look like. If you can remember, obviously anytime you see a letter, this is called your variable. In front of the variable, there's a spot right here for another number. This is called your coefficient. Now if you actually don't see a number there, that means the coefficient is 1. If you do see a number, then it's obviously either a number greater than or less than 1, except for 0. And then these two numbers here that don't have variables are called constants. Actually, I'm going to just draw this arrow sort of like that. Everything about these types of equations today is going to be about inverse operation. As I said, this is going to be review, nothing more. So quickly, not too quickly, we have x plus 5 is equal to 12. So the constant here is 5, focusing on the fact that I just said 5, so it's a positive. So the inverse of that is going to be a negative 5. So there's my positive 5, here's my negative 5. On this side I have a positive 12 and a negative 5. So when I subtract 5 from this expression, x plus 5, I'm left with x. And when I subtract 5 from 12, I'm left with 7. And that's about it. Let's try another right here. M plus 1 is equal to negative 10. So the opposite of plus 1 is minus 1. And so we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. Now on the left side, subtracting 1 from m plus 1 just leaves us with m. But I'm going to remind you that when we're subtracting integers, you have the option to always rewrite it as adding the opposite. So this is not actually 1 being taken from negative 10, but actually two negatives being put together. So they have a sum of negative 11. And if you do the check, that makes sense. If we put negative 11 here, negative 11 plus 1 would give you negative 10. So that's correct. M plus 34 is equal to negative 72. I'm going to try one more of those again with you. This time I'll do it on the stacking version. So the opposite of 34 is to subtract 34. So I'm going to stack the expressions like that. I'm not a real fan of this method, but I know you prefer it, so I tend to show both options. So if you subtract 34 from the expression m plus 34, that leaves us with m. And just like the previous example, we have a negative 72 minus 34, which means we're going to add. You can add the opposite. And by doing this, we have our numbers nicely stacked, allowing us to do this. And remember that a negative plus a negative is still a negative, so it's negative 106. Let's try this again. This one's going to be slightly different, something a little new. You haven't seen these too much recently. 80 minus b is equal to 26. So 80 is a positive number. There's nothing in front of it, so that's positive. So we're going to subtract 80. That's this 80 right here. Now we're going to subtract 80 from it. Then we have our minus b and that's equal to 26 minus 80. 80 minus 80 is 0. 0 minus b is negative b. Now as for the 26 minus 80, this is the positive integer, this is the negative, so you're going to want to subtract these. There is going to be a difference. Now before I actually ask you to do the subtraction, if 26 is positive and 80 is a negative, the greater absolute value of these two numbers belongs to negative 80. So that means our answer to 80 minus 26 is going to be a negative because of the absolute value of negative 80 being greater than the absolute value of 26. Go ahead and do your subtraction up here. So 10 minus 6 is 4, and then 7 minus 2 is 5. So negative b is equal to negative 54. You're going to learn in time, teacher after teacher, that we don't want to finish with a negative variable. So you have a choice. First of all, the coefficient of b is negative 1. So I'm going to put a little dotted 1 right there. That means you can either multiply or divide both sides by a negative, because that's the inverse dividing by a negative is the inverse operation. But you'll notice that multiplying or dividing by negative 1 is the same thing. So negative over negative is positive, so there's our b, and then negative over negative is positive, so there's our 54. Now if you do the check for this solution, it'll be correct. 80 minus 54 is 26. If you had done 80 minus a negative 54, then you would have never got 26. 80 minus negative 54 would have been 80 plus 54, and that would be far from 26. Here we go, 2 more just to finish up. (9x) is equal to 81. So the coefficient of x is 9, so we're going to divide both sides by 9. This is negative 81 divided by 9. Let's simplify the left side, so that's 1x. And then negative 81 divided by 9 is negative 9. And our last one. Negative 4a is equal to 24. So again, the coefficient of a is negative 4, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. And 24 divided by negative 4, paper moved. Simplify your left-hand side. Negative 4 over negative 4 is 1, so that's a. And 24 divided by negative 4 is negative 6. There you go. Alright. Like I said, this is a review lesson. We'll take a couple days going through this and we'll finish up this section slowly but surely. Good luck.